Jackson Elementary in Green Bay receiving a visit this morning from the U.S. Education Secretary as part of his back-to-school bus tour.
The school was selected after having success in using money from the American Rescue Plan to promote multilingualism. In a First Alert exclusive, Jason Zimmerman spoke to the secretary one-on-one about the tour and goals for the upcoming school year.
Students at Jackson Elementary a little extra excited Tuesday morning for an assembly featuring a special guest, as Education Secretary Miguel Cardona brought his bus tour to Green Bay to highlight the ongoing commitment of the Biden administration to public education coming off the COVID-19 pandemic.
I know in Wisconsin they've already caught up to the pandemic loss in reading. They're getting there with math, not quite there yet, which is important that we continue to support our public schools.
Among the schools to receive a portion of the $1.5 million going to Wisconsin is Jackson Elementary, and some of it has been dedicated to helping students learn a second language.
Imagine how beneficial, what an advantage these kids are going to have when they leave elementary school knowing more than one language. That's one of the things that we really want to promote. They got a grant for that, but we're also focusing on making sure the school year starts off right.
The secretary was able to witness the progress firsthand as students read from a book in both English and Spanish. School officials say being chosen for a visit is a huge deal.
Our Hispanic-speaking, Spanish-speaking students and population is growing in Green Bay. So to highlight some of the great things we're doing to recognize that is fantastic.
A portion of the grant also going to support mental health.
Students are 6 times more likely to get support for mental health needs in schools than they are in the community. So we want to make sure that we're not taking away from reading supports to address mental health needs. We're providing mental health supports for our students.
Besides the stop in Green Bay, the secretary also spent time Tuesday at schools in Oneida and in the Madison area. Because this was an official visit, he could not take questions on the upcoming presidential campaign. Reporting in Green Bay, Jason Zimmerman, Action 2 News.